Good afternoon, subscribers, and welcome back. I'm putting this video together today as a result of a question posed by one of my subscribers during the weekend. So thank you very much for the question, and it's an excellent question and good material for this particular video. So we're following on from the video which I did most recently on the kinked demand curve, as you see here from Oligopoly. And the question posed by my subscriber was this: why is there a discontinuity in the marginal revenue curve? So, without further ado, let's consider why there is a discontinuity in the marginal revenue curve. Well, I thought it would be helpful, before we do that, if we just consider the way in which we derive the marginal revenue curve from the average revenue curve. Average revenue, as you know, we also think about that as being the demand curve. So I've just drawn the brief outline here for the introduction of a given demand curve where price is falling and quantity demanded is rising, so obeying the normal law of demand. And I think the first important thing here is to identify the relationship between average revenue and marginal revenue. Remember, marginal revenue is the change in total revenue from selling an additional good and or service. And you'll obviously be familiar with particularly the monopoly diagram, which shows average revenue like so, and then the marginal revenue curve here falling beneath that. So what is the reason for that? Well, the reason is that the marginal revenue curve is derived in essence from average revenue. And you can see that on our particular example here. So total revenue, average revenue, marginal revenue. So when price is 10, total revenue is 10, average revenue is 10. When price drops to 9, total revenue is 18, average revenue is 9, and the marginal revenue is 8. But then, ladies and gentlemen, look at the next row. When the price drops to 8, total revenue 24, average revenue is 8, so 10, 9, 8 average revenue here following the price really, willingness to pay. But obviously the more important thing in our analysis here is that the marginal revenue here is 8 up to 24, so that is 6. And so we can see the relationship here that when average revenue is 9, marginal revenue lies beneath it at 8. When average revenue is 8, marginal revenue lies beneath it at 6. And it is that relationship which means that we can draw the diverging average and marginal revenue curves. Okay, let's then apply that thinking to the KDC, the kinked demand curve. So here we have elastic, inelastic. Now, the basic gist of this, ladies and gentlemen, is of course that really we're talking about two separate demand curves here which are joined together. One of them is this elastic curve, which we could keep going like so, and the other one is the more inelastic curve, which we could keep going like so. In fact, let's take that all the way up to the price, the y-axis. Okay, now, if we have two demand curves there, we could therefore, in essence, be drawing two separate marginal revenue curves. We've got one here on this monopoly diagram. We could, in effect, be drawing two on this one. So, for the elastic one, we would be having a marginal revenue curve which is coming out and probably be heading off something like so. So it would be the MRE, if you will, the marginal revenue for the elastic curve. And then we would also be having a much steeper one coming from the inelastic curve, which we'll call MRI, like so. Now you can see that when we get to this point of price rigidity, P star, Q star, we're really having to leap off the elastic marginal revenue curve and then jump on to the inelastic marginal revenue curve. So you can see we're following the marginal revenue curve along the inelastic demand curve, derivation from, and then we're having to go straight down and then jump onto, in effect, the marginal revenue for the inelastic curve. And as a consequence of that, ladies and gentlemen, you can see that we have to therefore have this discontinuity in the marginal revenue curve because of the fact that actually we're jumping from a marginal revenue curve on a very elastic demand curve to the marginal revenue curve derived from a very inelastic one. And that is the reason why we have this discontinuity. Now we could work this out in numbers, we could show you why this would be the case, but it'd be a bit long and laborious to do that. That's the basic gist of it. And hence we end up with there, down to there, jump to the next one, and then continue as you were in effect. And of course then that is the reason why that we can have the marginal costs changing to varying degrees, but the price never changing. It always stays at P star with an output of Q star. So, excuse me. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Just a very short one, but I thought that was a good question. Thank you to whoever asked that. Do ask me some more questions. I'll be delighted to hear from you and get back to you. Bye for now.